Last year, I put out a video stating that Meteor Lake was having a ton of issues and that we would be lucky to see it launch to even laptop before the end of Q3 in 2023. And I also said that the high core count tiles for the desktop variant seemed to be canceled, and so if it ever comes to desktop, and it probably wouldn't, it would be limited to i7 or even i5 variants, waiting for the true Arrow Lake flagships to launch later in 2024. And then, in fact, a few months ago, I reconfirmed this information, saying that Meteor Lake was still having tons of issues, that the desktop variant was almost certainly canceled, and yeah, to this day, there's been now more rumors, finally, a year after I leaked this, saying that Meteor Lake desktop seems to be canceled. And I want to start this video by saying, yeah, desktop Meteor Lake is canceled. It is not coming to LGA 1851, and that decision was actually made weeks ago. And I was actually then working on a larger video to talk about this and other stuff because, well, I already leaked that. I didn't think it was really worth doing a video on something being canceled I had said was going to be canceled for months. But yeah, I've actually got a lot more crazy information today, like Panther Lake almost getting canceled as well, and just, well, talking about how things seem to be a huge mess at Intel right now in terms of what's getting canceled, what's getting upgraded, and what's even going on. But I don't want to bury the lead anymore. Let's get right into the juiciest information in this video right away. And the first thing I have to say is that about a month ago, this channel put out a leak detailing various upcoming Intel architectures. I know, the video was long, but a ton of effort went into it. It's been performing very well because although it's a long video, it does make good use of the time. And so I would just say, although I will make sure to tell you what I think you need to know to enjoy this video, if you want to understand every little facet of the architectures talked about today, go watch that one first and then come to this one, because I think it'd be a waste of time to spend like 20 minutes re-summarizing every little thing. I made that video. I put a lot of effort into it. Watch that if you want to know everything. And otherwise, I have stuff I'm leaking today that's not even in that video. So think of this as kind of adding on based on new updates from within Intel. But yeah, so the first thing I'm going to update is stuff about Meteor Lake. It's canceled on LGA 1851, of course. I already said that. And yeah, there's been a flurry of information, or should I say discussion online, about these two bonus cores on the SoC. And I am told by at least a couple of my Intel contacts that these are literally called hidden cores on the SoC in some documentation, and that not really everyone even working on tiles for the Meteor Lake program knows a whole lot about them. But what they do seem to know is that they are mostly there to be used when you disable the CPU tile for massive idle power savings. I think this was a well-guarded secret within Intel because they don't want AMD to know how efficient Meteor Lake can be in certain scenarios. And then I also hear that it's for managing like chip to chipset and, you know, cross tile communication because of how complicated Meteor Lake is. And in fact, I technically can't confirm personally if any general apps can even use these SoC tiles at once. Like, I don't know if Cinebench is going to use the 6+8 and the 2 extra SoC cores for, you know, getting a higher benchmark. But what I do know is that's not what they were designed predominantly for. They're there to help with idle power savings and chipset and I/O communication. That's what they're for. If any apps can actually use them at the same time as the other cores to boost performance by another few percentage points, I don't really think that's what they're meant for. So it wouldn't surprise me if they really are just there for deep background tasks and idle power savings. But we'll learn more very soon, I'm sure. And then I do want to say this though today about Meteor Lake, because it is going to come out, you know, within a few months or so. The way I would summarize Meteor Lake, talking to people at Intel, how they feel about it, you should think of Meteor Lake more as a Zen 4 Phoenix killer than a Zen 5 Strix competitor, right? They don't think Meteor Lake's going to beat AMD's next-gen APU coming out in, honestly, about half a year, maybe a little later than that, but around there. It should be thought of as something that mostly is in the same performance tier as Phoenix, but it does beat Phoenix. But then if you're obsessed with efficiency, it actually might get close to Strix. So I guess if you put a gun up to my head, I would say Meteor Lake is in between Phoenix and Strix performance, but it depends which performance you're talking about. If you're talking about raw performance, it's closer to Phoenix even though it wins. But if you're talking about efficiency, it might be thought of more of a Strix competitor in that regard. But let's move forward. Arrow Lake, I have a ton of important updates on this one today. So it's still on track, supposedly to launch in the Q4 of 2024 to LGA 1851 desktop and also, of course, to laptop. And this is a big one. I was recently told that that 8 plus 32 core tile has been reactivated in development. You know, me and I believe a few other people confirmed that it was just 8 plus 16 as the top configuration on desktop for months now. But I am told that that tile is now progressing again, that people are working on it. There's updates and the Intel like backend systems. You can see that they're making progress again. So it seems like Intel may have made the decision to actually go forward with this, which is, when you look at Arrow Lake getting boosted, in Meteor Lake having parts of it canceled, you can start to see what's going on here, I think, but I'll talk about that more later. And so, yeah, just to tell you again, I'm still hearing Arrow Lake is projected to offer 30 to 40% higher single threading than Raptor Lake, and that based on a benchmark I have showing 6 plus 8 Arrow Lake compared to 6 plus 8 Meteor Lake, so same core configurations, it wins by around 40% in multi-threading while using the same amount of energy. And remember, Meteor Lake is going to be crazy more efficient than Raptor Lake. And so based on this, if you're a desktop shopper, keep in mind that Arrow Lake in its top 8 plus 32 configuration, if that does end up coming out, should beat the current Intel flagship by 55 to 75% in multi-threading, in addition to that massive single threading win. And here's all of the dies in design and development right now. There is the 8 plus 32 variant on a TSMC 3nm node for desktop, an 8 plus 16 for i7 on desktop, a 6 plus 8 also on TSMC for laptop i5s and i7s. And then this is interesting to me. There's a 20A Arrow Lake planned for desktop i3s and i5s. And to me, this would suggest that Intel is hedging their bets, making sure some of their designs are also on TSMC and their own nodes. So if one of them has issues, they still have that. But that would tell me if they're putting 6 plus 8 on TSMC for laptop and 6 plus 8 on their own node for desktop, that their desktop node seems to be less efficient than TSMC. So I guess we can just say it. Intel will not be catching up to TSMC next year, maybe in 2025. And then there's also the 20A 2 plus 8 Arrow Lake plan for budget i3 laptops. And yeah, so the bad news, though, is it sounds like integrated graphics on Arrow Lake may be getting nerfed. Now, 192 execution units, yeah, that's a lot less than the 320 both me and Adore TV and probably others have leaked. And that's still, though, you know, that's still 50% more than what Meteor Lake's going to have, and it's going from Battle Mage and Meteor Lake to Celestial. So I still think we can expect a 50 to 100% performance increase over the integrated graphics in Meteor Lake, but it doesn't at all sound like a Strix Halo competitor at this point, unless there's some 320 execution unit model that's being saved for some other version of Arrow Lake. But a standard Arrow Lake product, it sounds like it's going to have 192 execution units. I'll talk about later how strong that's probably going to be. And then Arrow Lake and Panther Lake's AI engines, unfortunately, I don't have a lot to say about them because nobody I talk to knows anything about them. And I'm not going to pretend I know something I don't. But yeah, I said Panther Lake. I've got even crazier information here today, people. So, current target is late 2025 to launch to the same platform as Arrow Lake. So if you get Arrow Lake on LGA 1851, you can upgrade to Panther Lake a year later. And again, this is a target. Who knows if it will be delayed. But right now, they're trying to get this 1 year after Arrow Lake. And to be honest, guys, the original script for this video planned to leak that Panther Lake was canceled. That was the original title of this, was Arrow Lake looks great, but Panther Lake's canceled. And the reason it almost was canceled is the Panther Cove big core architecture planned for it was yielding unimpressive results in simulations that just came out, like less than a 10% IPC increase. And because of that, they were planning on kind of doing what they did to Meteor Lake. They were going to go, okay, well, Arrow Lake's good, Panther Lake's bad, let's cancel Panther Lake, at least on desktop, and just do an Arrow Lake refresh. Like, they're planning to do a Raptor Lake refresh this year, but now they've actually pulled in another side project called Cougar Cove, and it's appearing in the documentation, the POR documents, as plan of record for how progress is going when parts of the company report to each other. And it's going to get 8 plus 32 as well. And it's projected now to hit 30 to 40% single threading increase over Arrow Lake and a 15 to 20% multi-threading increase over it as well. So, yeah, I'm glad that I really scoured with my sources over the past week to make sure this was true, because the difference between Panther Lake being canceled and Panther Lake getting an upgrade to Cougar Cove is a huge difference. And what this tells me is Intel is just, look how many different dies they're making for Arrow Lake. Look at how they refused, apparently, after some pushback, part of the company, to cancel Panther Lake and just upgraded it. I'd say what's going on right now is Intel is canceling anything they need to save money over the next year and going all out late 2024 through late 2025, because I think they realize they have a chance to just full stop beat AMD for a whole year straight, and they want that to finally happen. And we're in a recession in the tech industry right now, at least when it comes to clients, so they might as well save money is also what they're probably thinking. But yeah, besides that, I would just say, let's not double down on the exact performance. Remember, this thing is, I'd say, at least 2 years away. Things can change. For all I know, even though the documentation I've recently seen showed Panther Lake with Cougar Cove, for all I know, they'll change the name to Cougar Lake. And, Panther Lake originally was going to be, or Panther Cove was originally going to be impressive. Then they canceled that because of the IPC simulations. A lot of things can change. But right now, it seems like Intel's hell-bent on making Panther Lake a success. That's the good news. And finally, another fun one, Beast Lake. Now, this is something in early development. When I say early development, I mean 2026 at the earliest. I don't even know if this is going to be a main architecture or if this is some side project to finally beat AMD's X3D parts in gaming. But it sounds like it might be. It has an extreme focus on single-threading performance. Think absurd clock speeds is the goal, and absurd IPC at the expense of die size is also the goal. And I've seen 2 different designs that are being thrown around right now in a couple documents. One, they all involve these things called extra big cores, and some of them get more than 8 big cores, and they're extra big, and some of them go for more of like a 4 huge core plus 32 little core design. Now, for that to work out well, they'd have to solve the latency penalty that's going on between communicating with big and little cores in games. But I don't know, I just thought you guys might want to know that there's something, and I did double check this was real because the name's hilarious to me, but there's something called Beast Lake they're working on, and they're deciding between having crazy beefed up only 10 cores or 4 crazy beefed up cores and 32 little cores, and I think that's pretty exciting. All right, so I just leaked a ton of information. What am I most excited about? And what do I think AMD is going to have the most trouble competing with? Well, first of all, I don't think we should really be talking about Beast Lake any more than I just did. It's exciting that Intel seems to have a branch of the Royal Core project hell-bent on insane single-threading performance, maybe to offer a true gaming architecture, finally, that unseats AMD's supremacy with their X3D products. But besides that, don't double down on the specs. Don't even double down on it coming out. I've heard about things like Norton Lake and Ocean Cove. Those never came out. Beast Lake's 2026 at the earliest. All we should be excited about is it seems like something will come out with insane single-threading performance in a few years, but let's not be sure of what the exact configuration is just yet. Now, when it comes to products coming out in the next couple of years, well, first of all, Arrow Lake, look, if this actually goes to 32 little cores, I think it should pretty easily take all performance crowns. But there's 2 huge pieces of caution I need to throw out there to the people probably chanting AMD is doomed right now in the comments already. Number 1, if Arrow Lake comes out more than half a year after Zen 5, who cares? It's going to be just like Meteor Lake. Meteor Lake was supposed to come out at the beginning of 2023, or really late 2022. If it would have launched before Phoenix, yeah, it's more expensive, but it's better and it's out first. That would have been awesome. But the more it got and is getting delayed, the more it's just a more expensive Strix competitor. And so if Arrow Lake comes out close to when Zen 5 does, heck, especially if it comes out before Zen 5 X3D does, yeah, it's a huge win. But if it comes out close to Zen 6, yeah, it doesn't matter. I think Zen 6 may be even crazier than Arrow Lake. It needs to come out on time. Intel cannot keep letting delays destroy what could be good products. I feel like I say that in every Intel video. But also, I have to bring up one other thing here that's going to sound a little controversial at first, but hear me out before you get mad. When I look at those crazy Arrow Lake specs, I'm a little concerned that Intel is over-designing to win today's battles and not thinking about the cost to do that and the future. So, right, think about it. Right now, if there was something 40% stronger in single threading than Raptor Lake with 8 cores, and it also had like an HEDT amount of cores for multi-threading, yeah, it would be crazy. It'd just demolish everything. It'd be the best product. But that's today. The Arrow Lake might end up launching like 2 years from now. Are we so sure we're going to want tons of little cores? Are we so sure we're not going to want more than 8 big cores as games start wanting more than 8 cores? Because little cores don't really seem to help games right now. And I mean this directly, guys. There's a performance penalty due to latency with the big cores communicating with little cores in games. That means that at least right now, still, Alder Lake and Raptor Lake's little cores are more about background tasks and parallelized applications. They're really not about games eventually using those. And so unless Intel has solved that issue, which maybe they have, and then, wow, this is going to be crazy, I do worry that some games will not perform as well relative to Zen 5 X3D as you would expect, and that we might just have a bunch of little cores people don't want anymore. I mean, heck, 2 years from now, look at how AI is exploding. Is there a chance what people want in 2 years is just going to be like 12 big cores, 16 little cores, and then a crazy AI engine for everything else? That's my concern. Now, I still don't know what the AI engine in Arrow Lake is like, so maybe this is all silly for me to worry about, but these are concerns you should have, especially when you realize 8 plus 32 on 3 nanometer. Yes, that will beat Zen 5, probably at just about everything. Might even win in gaming by over 10% against Zen 5 X3D. But Zen 5, as far as I'm aware, uses a 6 nanometer I/O die and then 2 4 nanometer chiplets for the cores. That is way, 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 way cheaper than this massive 3 nanometer core tile in Arrow Lake. And that's just one tile. They also have the SoC tile and the other tiles. For all I know, Arrow Lake could cost twice as much to produce as Zen 5. And hear me out here. What would you choose a year from now if they actually launch around the same time? Like, say, Zen 5 X3D and, Arrow Lake, 8 plus 32. Would you choose a $600 16-core with Vcache that's 5% weaker than this crazy Arrow Lake chip if this one's 600 and this one's 1200? There is a lot more silicon, a lot more expensive silicon in Arrow Lake. It's not crazy for me to suggest it may cost like $1,000 for that chip. Now, maybe it won't, and I hope it won't, but it will cost a lot more to produce. And if AMD matches it in gaming performance, and then Arrow Lake is so expensive to make on desktop that AMD can conceivably almost price a 32-core Zen 5 Threadripper for the same price or similar, I don't know. If you want 32 cores or something or more, aren't you just going to go to HEDT? And if you want gaming, aren't you just going to get something that's close to the same performance for half the price? I just think all of this is food for thought. It's too soon to be sure who's going to win what. This reminds me so much when we had Zen 4 and Raptor Lake rumors coming out of this channel, Moore's Law is Dead, and there were people just doubling down on all these things, and it's like, well, we still don't know. We didn't know back then if Raptor Lake would hit its peak performance or hit the minimums, and we didn't know if Zen 4 would hit its peak or hit its minimums. Zen 4 seemed to hit the minimums of what they were projecting, and Raptor Lake hit the maximums. What if the opposite happens? What if Arrow Lake hits the minimums and Zen 5 hits the maximums of what they're projecting? Well, we could have a situation where Intel has something that's barely better for double the price that comes out half a year later. It's too soon to say that will happen, but these are things you should keep in the back of your head if you're chanting AMD is doomed. It's definitely too soon to say that. And really the same will be said for Panther Lake. It looks like a decent upgrade over Arrow Lake. I mean, honestly, the way I'd put it is Arrow Lake looks like it's going to be 30 to 70% better than Raptor Lake, and then Zen 5 is going to be, I don't know, maybe 25 to 35% better than Zen 4, but with X3D it may be a little more than that. But then Zen 6 I think might be double as good as Zen 5 or something. And so if you think of Panther Lake 20% better than something 50% better, AMD going 25, and then they're going to be, I think Panther Lake and Zen 6 are going to be competitive. But I do mean that in a good way for Intel too. The people I talk to think Panther Lake is going to be very competitive with Zen 6 and maybe beat it at everything, just like Arrow Lake seems like it might do to Zen 5. But it's too soon to be sure about all of that. Just know that at least right now, Intel is very optimistic for Arrow Lake and Panther Lake. All right, but that's all I have to say about the CPU stuff in the leak I put out today. I also actually want to touch on the integrated graphics stuff I leaked today. Specifically that Arrow Lake is getting nerfed, it seems like, with its standard integrated graphics offerings. Previous leaks from me and Adore TV said 320 execution units. At least right now, that seems to be only for some hidden Halo variant, if it even exists. Standard Arrow Lake seems to be nerfed down to 192 execution units, which, that should still be 50 to 100% better, probably, than Meteor Lake's integrated graphics. But it's definitely not the Strix Halo almost competitor I think we were hoping it would be. And so, well, today I wanted to get a baseline for testing what level of integrated graphics performance does feel like it's enough to get rid of dedicated GPUs. Recently I leaked that OEMs were planning to drop, not just MX series and like 1650 class GPUs, but all the way up to 4050 and maybe even 4060 class GPUs, because Meteor Lake and upcoming Strix is strong enough. They think that it does enough for you, that it's worth the extra battery life to just drop dedicated graphics. And, to help me test this, I was sponsored by GEEKOM today, who sent me several NUCs to test the performance of existing APUs that I could then use that data with projections from AMD and Intel contacts to get an idea for, well, if it's 2 or 3 times better than this, is that enough? Would I be happy? And, before I get to the benchmarks, I do have to mention a few things from the sponsor because they helped me out with this. So they sent me 2 NUCs. We've got the Intel NUC 13 Pro Arena Canyon, which has 96 execution units and an i7 1360p, and then a mini PC from AMD that's the AS6 with a 680M integrated graphics and a 6900 HX. Links are in the description if you're interested in either of these products. Buying one helps me out, helps me get more sponsorships, and even just clicking on the links helps a lot too. And honestly, if you're looking for a compact mini PC with a lightning fast SSD, premium build quality, these things are so high quality feeling, and just tons of I/O to the point that this can almost be like a mini workstation. I really do think these are good options. The only negative I can say is they don't have a ton of overclocking support, and if you really push them, they can make noise. Not noise like a gaming laptop that all seem to just sound crazy loud these days, but certainly more than silent if you really push them. And if you're trying to decide between the AMD and the Intel system, the good news is they both come with 1 terabyte SSDs, they're PCIe Gen 4, and 32 gigabytes of DDR5 as standard. A lot of mini PC builders don't do that. That's really cool. And they also have Wi-Fi 6E, so that's good. They both have tons of I/O. The Intel system is Thunderbolt, and it's a little better in bursty workloads with its like 5 to 20% higher single threading performance. But outside of that, I actually found the AMD system would often get better multi-threading performance while using less energy and having, more I/O that I would want in it. Again, if you want Thunderbolt, you got to go Intel. And also, if it comes to gaming here, I'm sorry, people, like AMD obviously completely dominates Intel with Rembrandt. As you can see on the benchmarks on screen here, the Rembrandt system often performed twice as well than the Intel system. Whereas the Rembrandt system, you could pretty much bet on it getting over 30 frames per second with high settings in 1080p, meaning if you turned on FSR or went down to low settings, you could usually hit 60 on it. The Intel system, even if you turn down all settings, wasn't going to get to 60 and 1080p, and you'd often have to go to 720p with FSR turned on. It's just a different experience. But as you'll notice on this chart here, Meteor Lake is projected to be about twice as strong as Raptor Lake / Tiger Lake's integrated graphics, and that will put it just below a desktop 1650, which doesn't sound crazy, but do keep in mind, people, just below a desktop 1650 with GDDR6, that's pretty dang good. And I can see why OEMs are planning to drop 4050s and even 4060s in a lot of their upcoming designs, because they'd rather save money and be able to market like a 20-hour battery life than a 10-hour battery life, and you're still probably gaming in 1080p. And if it's a 4050, it really doesn't even have enough VRAM anyways, so what's the difference? Yeah, I can get why they're doing that with Meteor Lake, but I will say that Meteor Lake's, it's mostly going to probably be about battery life still, because Phoenix is almost going to be there. Remember, Phoenix isn't on this chart. It's going to be just below Meteor Lake probably by 10 to 20%, and then Strix, I really think that's the one that's going to break that threshold to make everybody super excited after my testing today. It doesn't look crazy because it's behind a 3050, but remember, that's a desktop 3050 using 120 watts that's been overclocked by 10 to 20% by me. You know, if AMD can get to, it seems about like 70% of that performance with a 45 watt APU, yeah, that's definitely going to beat laptop 3050s, or at least be close. And I think that's the level of performance, because I played with a 3050 for at least a month, that I do not think you need dedicated graphics cards if it means you're cutting your battery life in half in a laptop. I just don't think it would make sense. And again, I want to thank GEEKOM for making this part of the video possible and sponsoring. Again, click those links in the description to support that sponsor. But let's re-summarize here. Basically, the situation I see Intel's integrated graphics in right now is that, number one, AMD has the lead with Phoenix by a huge margin until Meteor Lake comes out. And then once Meteor Lake comes out, yes, it's going to take the integrated graphics performance crown, but I don't know if it's going to be by enough to brag. I think it's going to be like by 10 to 20%. It'll be better, but really if you're getting Meteor Lake, it's for the battery life, not because it just beat AMD's integrated graphics while costing more, you know. And then early next year, though, AMD is going to take that integrated graphics performance crown right back. And then I think Arrow Lake might double Meteor Lake integrated graphics performance and truly get to about 3050 desktop, and maybe even 3060 laptop performance at the end of next year. Unfortunately, it sounds like they've nerfed Arrow Lake, so it's not going to get to that like 4060 performance or something, but it could be 3060, you know, almost max Q performance. And I get, you can see why OEMs are making these decisions. Although, you know, one last thing I want to say in this video before we close out is that as exciting as it is to see Intel and AMD swapping crowns between, you know, Zen 4 to Raptor Lake Refresh to Zen 5 to Arrow Lake to Zen 6 to Panther Lake, that's exciting. And it's also exciting to see what seems like a swapping of the integrated graphics performance crowns. Usually AMD will win by more when their new stuff comes out, but it's crazy that Intel's going to probably trade blows back and forth with AMD and integrated graphics. None of that's going to matter for Intel if they don't fix their drivers. The Raptor Lake system that I tested today used the same driver download for my Alchemist graphics card that I have here, and I ran into like the same performance issues in a lot of games. Battlefield 2042 didn't really work at all. And I want to be clear about this because it's weird that I see so many websites like testing Halo, even though Battlefield seems to have a way more active player base right now. That's crazy that the same integrated graphics that Intel's been selling since Tiger Lake, so they've had like 3 years to make these drivers good, still can't run like a third of the games I try to play. And so I want to say, as excited as I am to see AMD and Intel trade blows in integrated graphics in addition to CPUs, I'm going to be watching this Meteor Lake launch very carefully. I'm going to want to test an Intel Meteor Lake NUC and find that everything works well, because if it doesn't, I don't know why I would really be rooting for Arrow Lake's integrated graphics at all. It'd be great for non-gaming. I have no issue with a Raptor Lake system right now doing non-gaming tasks. But if Intel can't fix their integrated graphics drivers that have been out for 3 years, why would I believe they will with anything that comes out now? Why would I believe Alchemist will ever be fixed? To the people that say Alchemist is getting better, they still haven't fixed Tiger Lake's graphics 3 years after it came out. Why would I believe they do after Alchemist? Don't give me promises, Intel. Give me, you know, just deliver. Just deliver. And, yeah, I think that's just about all I have to say for this video. I just want to wrap up by saying it is very clear that when we see parts of Meteor Lake get nerfed, and then parts of Arrow Lake's integrated graphics get nerfed, and then all these other things getting revised, delayed, and reduced in scope besides Arrow Lake's CPU and Panther Lake, it's very clear to me that when it comes to Intel's future, they think they need to bet the farm on Arrow Lake. They think, or they've realized, that they're going to have a clear performance win if they really go for it with Arrow Lake. Not a 5% win with like double the power usage like with Raptor Lake, but maybe a clean-cut 10 to 30% win that AMD can't touch for months, if not a year. They're going to go for that. But they're going to do it at the expense of basically everything coming out now and possibly some stuff coming out after that if they don't make the money they want to make, which this is a gamble then. And it's a gamble where you see that they're kind of betting the market will be healthy next year when they're dual sourcing Arrow Lake from 2 foundries. If they are wrong in this bet and they buy up all this capacity at Intel and reserve it for their own stuff and no one buys it or not enough people buy it, I don't know. If you're an investor, that's the type of thing you got to worry about as a true risk factor for Intel's future here, because they could be betting everything on a big comeback in 2024, but they're betting everything on it. And if it doesn't happen, they're done pretty much. So I guess we'll just have to see. But for now, Arrow Lake and Panther Lake look really exciting. And I want to thank you all for watching this video. Remember to subscribe to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel. Remember to ring the bell button. Remember to support our sponsors if you want any of their products like GEEKOM. Thank you again for sponsoring this video. And also remember to subscribe to the Moore's Law is Dead the Patreon, because you'll get early ad-free access to Broken Silicon. A new die shrink is coming out within 24 hours with behind-the-scenes information on the development of Alder Lake. That's there if you have just $2 a month. And otherwise, no matter what, thank you for watching.